What will cinema become in 10 years?
George Lucas has been making headline after headline lately. And it all started off when the man who literally invented the lightsaber, Roger Christian, claimed that George is returning back for a secret Star Wars project.
Because there's a Star Wars live action series coming. And I've got a strong suspicion that George will have something to do with that.
And it was giving fans the prospect that George will come in and save Star Wars. Or we had a little headline and drama when George Lucas had to respond to the criticism that Star Wars was racist and sexist in its storytelling and casting. And this all is going on because George is receiving an award at the Cannes Film Festival. He's receiving an award called the Palme d'Or. Now, I'm not French, but what I do know is that the Palme d'Or is the highest award that one can receive at Cannes. And also what I really do like about Cannes is that last spring, this is where Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was showcased for the first time. And when that happened, Variety has this just fantastic quote for us, where it says, during parts of the 142-minute film, audience members could be heard whispering out of boredom in French. You know, I think this communicates to me that sometimes the French do have some dubs. And now that George is at the festival to receive his award, he has to do a couple of interviews, go through some maybe formalities, and in this interview, he's asked a really interesting question on the state of the industry. He's asked, what will the industry look like in the next 10 years? What is the future of film? And let's hear how George responds.
The way the world works.
What will cinema become in 10 years?
Same thing as it is now. There's one thing that's really...
Same thing as now. Not really giving a new hope. Sounds like he's kind of saying that we're headed for more of the same disaster we've been getting in. Like if we think about last year was deemed by Nerdrotic as the year of the flopbuster. And now we are getting this year in 2024 half as many movies as we did last year in theaters. Part of that has to do with the strike and also just studios losing so much money. And George is saying that we are going to get more of the same. Here he's referring more to the ideas and the innovation and the thinking alongside of it, but I think it does have implications to the business side of it. But here let's see him dig into more on what he thinks of the creatives in the industry.
What happens now, and it happens in streaming probably more than features, but features the same thing. Nobody knows what to do. The stories they're telling are just old movies.
Nobody knows what to do. Everybody's just telling old movies. My first thought of that is he taking a shot at The Force Awakens? Is he kind of going at how Disney handled the sequel trilogy and everything that's going on with disasters like destroying George's characters with Obi-Wan Kenobi? Now that sounds really funny to me, but I think I'm probably stretching a little bit here. I think he's kind of talking to more bigger picture of what's going on in Hollywood. But let's hear a little bit more of what George has to say.
Let's do a sequel. Let's do another version of this movie. There's no, and it's not just in movies, but in almost everything. There's no original thinking.
There's no original thinking. Everybody's just kind of chasing a sequel, and that is definitely true this year. Like I said, that there's half as many movies coming out this year, and of those movies, only 4 of them are not reboots and spin-offs or sequels. There's not a whole lot of original ideas going on because people are not trying to tell new stories, but instead want to bank on the branding and the goodwill built up by the former, older, more talented creators to sell their product. and not put in the effort themselves to make a story that's good enough to stand on its own 2 feet. Now, I think I maybe should quickly mention that George, when he first created Star Wars, of course, he took on some ideas of the past, taking something like Flash Gordon and the original serials back then, or taking something like Seven Samurai, but there's a difference between taking inspiration and just flat out stealing somebody else's homework. Like if you watch something like Ahsoka, it really feels like Dave Filoni is just flat out taking what came from George and say something like A New Hope.
I can't see. How am I supposed to fight?
With the blast shield down, I can't even see. How am I supposed to fight?
I want you to see with more than just your eyes.
Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them.
That was exactly how it was shot in A New Hope.
I feel like I've seen this scene before, fellas.
And here, when we think about this year, how about I list some of the movies we're about to get, and you tell me if you really feel like there's a lot of original ideas going on. Because in 2024, with the major releases, we have Mean Girls, Madam Web, The First Omen, Godzilla x Kong the New Empire, Furiosa, Garfield, the John Wick spin-off Ballerina, Mufasa, The Lion King, A Quiet Place Day 1, Twisters, The Fall Guy, Borderlands, Wicked, Nosferatu, The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, Kraven the Hunter, Transformers 1, the 7th Alien movie, the 9th Planet of the Apes movie, Rebel Moon Part 2, Inside Out 2, Beetlejuice 2, Dune Part 2, Joker 2, Smile 2, Gladiator 2, Deadpool 3, Venom 3, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Bad Boys 4, Despicable Me 4, Ghostbusters 5, and Saw 11. Really does feel like Hollywood's on the cutting edge of new innovation.
How does it feel to have lived long enough to see all of your favorite franchises go down in flames?
Feels great.
And now I want to hear a little bit more on George, because he has his answer to one of the pressing questions in Hollywood brought up by Martin Scorsese a couple years ago on the question on if Marvel is cinema. So let's hear what Mr. George has to say.
It's interesting because with Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, you were part of what we call the new Hollywood. Interestingly, Martin Scorsese said he didn't think of Marvel movies as cinema. Do you agree with him?
Look.
So the question is, are Marvel movies cinema? I had to translate that in case you didn't know through that French accent. But let's hear what George's response is.
Cinema is the art of the moving image. So if the image moves, then it's cinema, you know. And I think Marty's kind of changed his mind a little bit. But you know, we're on the film.
George goes on to say how him and Marty and other really good directors kind of came together to help film preservation, but to focus on the idea with Marvel on if Marvel is cinema. George keeps it really simple. He says that cinema is the art of moving images. So if there's moving images, it inherently, by definition, is cinema. That doesn't mean that fantastic Marvel movies like Quantumania or The Marvels is good cinema, but it is cinema from just its definition.
Hey, Black Girl Magic!
And now, with what I brought up in the beginning on the possibility of George coming back to save Star Wars, you could hear George being asked that same question himself.
Well, thank you so much, George. Will you make another movie, a very last one?
No, I'm retired. The last one I did.
So there you have it, straight from the horse's mouth. Is he coming back? Is he retiring? Is Kathleen Kennedy just forcing him to keep her cards really close to her chest because George is here for some secret, spooky Star Wars project? Well, he says he's not coming back, and as he's getting up there in age, I sort of believe him. But after hearing me go on this spiel, if I am at least not the stupidest person you heard today, well, I think that means that that must be a sign that you need to like and subscribe.
Thanks for watching Duck Finder on YouTube. For more premium content, subscribe.
just like the simulation.